These are the #1 rated gaming mice on Temu right now. The Ajazz AJ159P and the Attack Shark X3. Basically clones of the Ninjutso Sora and the Superlight. Every reviewer says amazing value, every comment section says just good as the original. So I bought them both. I swapped the skates, installed the sketchy drivers and ran them through some tests in Aim Trainer's Endgame. One passed, one failed so hard that I genuinely don't understand how anyone recommends it. So here exactly what happened. I ordered both and it took a full month for them to arrive. When they finally showed up, the boxes were crushed and dented on every side. Now you have to remember that the gaming mouse is a precision tool. It has a sensor that tracks tiny movements every second. If the box is crushed, you have to ask, what happens to the sensor alignment inside? Now this is what I call the Temu lottery. You wait weeks for a box that looks like it survived the war and just pray your copy still works. Now in the world of budget manufacturing, quality control is expensive. To save money, these companies often skip the final inspection. This is why the lottery exists. One person gets a perfect mouse and the next person gets a sensor that is physically crooked. But before I could find the real flaws, I had to fix the hardware. The first thing I noticed is that the stock skates are completely unusable. They feel like sandpaper on a mousepad, scratchy and inconsistent. I didn't even try to play with them, I swapped them immediately for X-ray pad skate to make the test fair and remove the variable of bad plastic fit. Now the Attack Shark also comes with branded grip tape, but you should probably throw it away. I tried it on for one match and my hands were fully drenched. These grips actually make you sweat more than bare plastic, which is the opposite of what they are supposed to do in the first place. But the hardware wasn't the only concern, the software was even worse. Now to unlock the full settings you need the drivers. So I got them from the official sites and my antivirus blocked them instantly. It wasn't just like a warning, it was a full security block. I had to manually override my PC settings just to change my DPI. Now once I got the software open, it looked like it was coded in 10 minutes in cloud. Now worse than the look, these budget drivers often have polling deviation. This means if you set the mouse to let's say 1000 Hz, it might actually jump between 800 and 1010. This inconsistency makes your aim feel jittery because your computer isn't getting a steady stream of data. But with the skates fixed and the software installed, it was time to see if these things actually could aim. Now I started in Kovaaks, which is the best place to test a sensor because there are no lag or gain variables. Now within 30 seconds the Aegis fell wrong. The tracking felt thin and floaty, almost like the sensor is guessing where my hand is going instead of actually following it. This is usually caused by DPI deviation like I mentioned before. On many budget mice, if you set the DPI to 800, it might actually be 860. Now this small error ruins your muscle memory because your sensitivity is never quite what the box says it is. But the real problem is the build. The skates don't sit flat on the pad, so the mouse rocks side to side like a chair with one short leg. This is a base plate design flaw. To save weight, some companies make the bottom of the mouse too thin, which causes it to warp during shipping. On a fast glass surface, even a tiny curve in the plastic makes the mouse tilt during a flick. Every small move feels shaky because the mouse is literally tilting while you aim. Now the data shows that in tracking where the sensor really matters, it was failing. So next I picked up the Attack Shark and it was a totally different story. The tracking felt stable and the mouse sat flat on the pad, which by default is a big plus. Now the shape is basically a Superlight mini, and for the fingertip grip users like me, it actually fits my hand better than the original Logitech. Because the mouse is smaller, the center of gravity is easier to control. You aren't fighting the ass of the mouse during downward vertical movements basically. So it felt genuinely enjoyable in the aim trainer, however Kovaaks is a safe environment. Next I needed to see how this handled a real server. So I loaded into Valorant with the Ajazz first. On my glass pad the sensor stuttered constantly with micro skips every few seconds. Even at basic 1000 Hz settings, it couldn't process the surface. Now this is called surface compatibility. High-end sensors are tuned to work great on glass, cloth and even wood. Cheap implementations struggle to read the texture of glass, which leads to the sensor giving up for a split second. Now I even tried the high-end cloth pad to be fair, but the problem stayed. The stuttering and that weird tilt made every flick a gamble. Now I spent more time fighting the mouse than the enemies, and after 2 games I realized that the Ajazz isn't really a performance tool, it's just a plastic shell that looks like one. So I switched to the Attack Shark, and the difference was again night and day. There were no stuttering on the glass, the tracking felt smooth, and it actually felt like a real gaming mouse. I even pushed it into the finals again with very fast movement. And again here the Attack Shark held up perfectly fine. It doesn't have the same low click latency as a premium mouse, but for $40 the delay was small enough that I didn't notice it in a firefight. Now budget mice often have a higher debound setting to stop double clicking, which can add about like 10 milliseconds of lag. But the Shark felt responsive enough for casual play. Now this raised a huge question for me. Both of these mice use the same sensor. So why does one work while the other feels broken? So here is the lie that every budget brand wants you to believe. It has the PAW 3395 sensor, so it's just as good as the pros. But they put the sensor name on the box like it's a guaranteed of quality, but to be honest it is not really the case. Think of the sensor like a car machine. You can put a fast engine in a car, but if the steering wheel is broken and the tires are flat, Superlight, the car is still slow. Now a mouse needs a good sensor, but it also needs a good MCU, which is the brain, and good firmware, which is the code. The MCU has to take thousands of snapshots from the sensor and translate them into coordinates for your computer. If the MCU is cheap, it can keep up with data, which creates input lag. Bad firmware is even worse, it can add smoothing or acceleration that you really can't turn it off. So this is why the Ajazz stutters while the attack shark works. So this is what a lot of reviewers miss. The sensor means nothing if the implementation is bad. Now there is also a price trap. The base attack shark is like $40, which is a fair deal, but the pro version that promised 8000 Hz costs around $75. At that point the value is gone. You are paying premium price for a clone quality when you could just wait for a sale on a real Superlight or an Endgame gear mouse. Now buying a high spec clone is risky because you are paying for speed that the cheap internal parts might not be able to actually pull it off. So is this a mistake? For the Ajazz, the answer is yes. It stutters on every surface, the build is worth, and it's a clone of a shape that I think it's overhyped anyway. Do not gamble your money here, but the attack shark is actually a legitimate surprise. It works, it's smooth, and the smaller Superlight shape is actually a great fit for many people. Now I call this shape rental. You aren't really buying a $40 clone to be your main mouse forever. You can spend like $40 to rent a shape and see if it fits your hand. If the shape is perfect, you can eventually buy the real version with better click latency and a solid warranty. If you hate it, you just lost like $40 instead of the $150. It's a cheap way to test your grip without the risk of massive waste of money. Now, since these are the top clones on Temu right now, many people are tempted. If you live in a place where you can't really buy big brands, the attack shark is a solid option. Just remember the Temu lottery. My copy worked, but because the quality control is so low, yours might arrive crushed or broken. It's a calculated risk, but for the shark it's one that might actually pay off. And now the algorithm also thinks that you might really need to watch the next video.